Hey guys, Shelley Phillips here with my June 13th DVD update, where I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. I'm going to jump right into this update because I got a whole bunch of stuff in this. Probably one of the biggest updates I've ever done. Now the first one from Shout Factory is a double pack which has Tentacles and Reptilicus, and this is a Scream Factory release. Reptilicus though is a giant killer monster movie going around killing people, kind of like a Godzilla, but the one that I really want to talk the most about on here, which I absolutely love, was Tentacles. It's like totally my kind of movie because it's an Italian produced movie shot mostly in San Diego and then some exteriors in Italy. But I love these kind of Italian produced movies because they made a bunch of kind of sort of Jaws kind of knockoff kind of movies around the time in the 70s, and this is another one of these ones. But this one, another one I like is Big Alligator River, a whole bunch of them. This has Shelley Winters in this movie, though, as the biggest hatch you've ever seen in your entire life. And it's all centered around this kind of contest, like a boat racing contest. It's going to go on in the San Diego area. And when this is all happening, right before this giant octopus that's gotten out, killing all these people, and people getting killed, and the amazing, cheesy scenes of the boats that are like these obvious models, with a real, octopus, and then, a fake one, and there was just amazing sequences, and the music in this is a scene when they're, at a SeaWorld kind of place, which was before SeaWorld, and the theme to the orcas music is amazing. There's a scene with the trainer talking to the orcas, what he needs them to do in the movie, and it was one of those amazing scenes. This is the movie I'm going to look back on and watch certain scenes because it was amazing. Just a really great attacking, killing the people in the town, Jaws kind of knockoff sort of movie about not wanting to close down the beaches and not wanting to cancel the event and what's doing this. And I don't know, I really love this one, and the investigator, the paper guy trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know, I would highly recommend this, mainly for Tentacles, though. It was just such a great movie. The next one is Dog Soldiers, which is the brand new Scream Factory release with a really great new commissioned artwork for this one. I've always liked this one. This is Neil Marshall's, I believe, one of his first movies. He's best known for as well doing, The Descent, and that one movie with Bob Hoskins. I always forget the name of that one. And then there's one coming out that he did called Tales of Halloween. I can't wait to see that one, an anthology one that he recently directed, one of the segments of. But this movie's about a army training group out in the Scottish wilderness, and at the same time, though, in the beginning of the movie, you see something attack these people out in the woods. But this army training group is out there with kind of fake bullets and things like that, and they end up discovering this whole tent area with where the special ops have been hiding out, and all have been attacked and killed except one guy by these werewolves that are out in the middle of the woods. And in the beginning of the movie, the training group is talking about they heard tales of things that have happened out in these woods, and people have gotten killed off and they don't know where they went and things like that. And of course these soldiers end up getting trapped out there with the werewolves, and it's them trying to hide out and trying to survive and what they're going to do. Like I said, I always really love this movie. It was shot on 60mm, so it has a cool, gritty kind of feel to the movie. But it has on here a new commentary track, the making of Dog Soldiers, so a bunch of new interviews with the cast and crew. But, the effects artists and things like that. This is a really cool werewolf movie. One of my top favorite ones next to Ginger Snaps, which Scream Factory put out as well. But looks really good on Blu-ray. There was a Blu-ray of this release that came out a long time ago, one of the early Blu-rays. And the picture quality on that was not amazing. And I remember in the beginning when I first saw this movie, I thought it was shot on digital for some reason. I didn't realize in 2002, 16mm, I didn't know better than what they were shooting it on. But it has a really cool look, really cool werewolf movie, and a little different too than some of the other ones. The next one from Sony is Chappie. This is from the director of District 9, and I like this movie a lot. It's kind of sort of like a, I forget, blanking on the name right now. I'm starting to think of so many things to go through in this update. But Short Circuit. It's kind of like a Short Circuit kind of movie, but more of an R-rated one. I believe they're actually going to be doing a remake of Short Circuit as well. But this is about basically in the future there's these robots, and they're just sort of going around and sort of protecting the people in South Africa and things like that. But the one scientist ends up creating one that has artificial intelligence, which basically means it can think like a human, make its own decisions and things like that. And right when he's in the breakthrough of it, they want him to shut down the operations. He ends up escaping with the robot, taking it out and kind of hiding out. And Ninja and Yo-Landi from Die Antwoord are out there, and they kind of play that kind of sort of like the gang kind of guys out there that people would normally be afraid of and things like that, and they kind of take the robot in and say that they want to keep it, and it's basically though the kind of the robot learning and things like that, and them trying to get the robot back, the corporation that he took it from. I love this movie. I really thought it was cool. I thought it has a really cool ending too, just a really cool vibe to it. And out of all out of his movies, I think this might be my favorite of his movies, because the other one, that Elysium, I didn't love that one. I thought it was okay, but this one has on here alternate endings, extended scenes, and some featurettes and things like that on the movie. But really, really cool robot movie. The next one from Warner Brothers is the Liam Neeson film, which is one of my, I think, favorite Liam Neeson movies in a long time. Because some of his movies are all kind of similar, like he does the same kind of movie a lot. This one, to me, though, was the most interesting one. And this is Liam Neeson in Run All Night. And this is basically, though, Liam Neeson is kind of out of, he was like kind of killing for hire and stuff, working for Ed Harris's character, but he's kind of gotten away from that, and he's kind of hiding out and trying to lay low, and the police are always kind of saying, we would have put you away if we had this kind of information, but his son ends up getting involved in something, and Ed Harris's son ends up dying because of it, and basically Ed Harris wants to go and pretty much bring down Liam Neeson's son and kill him. Liam Neeson hasn't really seen his son in years, and it's kind of like them coming back together and Liam Neeson trying to protect him, and also kind of worrying that this is going to expose him, and the police are finally going to have what they need to put him away if he actually helps his son. So it's kind of like all set in one night, and just basically what happens, like a real crazy kind of movie. Really good performances in this movie. Like this one a lot, and has on here some featurettes on the movie and deleted scenes. Now this one got really mixed opinions, a lot of negativity review-wise and everything, and I really like this, and it's Vince Vaughn and Tom Wilkinson and Dave Franco in Unfinished Business. And this movie is basically, though, about Vince Vaughn's character, who works at this kind of corporation, this ad kind of company, and he gets in a fight with his boss and doesn't like the way she's treating him. He ends up quitting and saying, oh, I'm going to start my own corporation up, this ad company, and if any of you guys want to join me and come aboard, you guys can. And Dave Franco and Tom Wilkinson's character do, and it cuts to a year later. They're doing terrible. They haven't gotten any business, and they finally have this big offer that's going to happen, and they can go to Europe to finalize the deal on it. But when they get there, they end up finding out that Vince Vaughn's old boss is there with the same offer, and their company's kind of talking with both of them, and they kind of have to figure out how they're going to win, because if they don't win this thing, their company's going to go out of business. But I thought it was actually a really pretty heartfelt movie. They kind of, in the trailers, pitched it more like it was a real raunchy kind of movie, and it really wasn't that kind of movie at all. It was more like a nice kind of positive movie about Vince Vaughn trying to keep his family going, so he doesn't lose his job, and trying to help out Tom Wilkinson and Dave Franco's character so they don't lose their jobs. And I like this movie. I really thought this was a good movie, and it got a lot of negativity. The next one from Fox as well is The Lazarus Effect with Mark Duplass and Olivia Wilde. And I think this is one of Mark Duplass's, the first movies I've seen him in that was like more of like a mainstream kind of Hollywood type movie, because I always know him more for the movies he's directed and like some real indie movies. Like I really have liked his movies, that he's directed in the indie stuff. So this is like one of the first more Hollywood things he did. And I think this movie was shot a while ago, and it took a really long time to come out. But it's basically Mark Duplass and Olivia Wilde's character who are inventing this kind of thing where they can bring people back to from the dead. They're trying to, and they're doing tests on animals and things like that, and they're relatively successful of it. But one night, though, also, the companies kind of want to shut them down, and there's all kinds of stuff going on at this building that they're at, and the company wants to take their research and all this. But, basically, though, the one night Olivia Wilde's character ends up getting electrocuted and dies, and they're all going, oh, don't do it, we can't risk it, we've never done anything on a human. Of course, though, he doesn't want to accept no for an answer, ends up bringing her back from the dead, and when she comes back, there's something very weird about her. And it was not a great decision to do that. It's kind of the results of doing this. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like Flatliners, that kind of vibe, mixed with Reanimator. Has on here, though, making of and some deleted scenes, but I actually like this one. I kind of wish, though, it went for more of an R rating, though, just so it didn't have to hold back a little bit. Now the next one from Disney is the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away, which has always been my favorites, one of my top favorite of their movies. This is one of those ones that I remember seeing in theaters when it first came out. And when it comes to their movies, I don't mind watching the dubbed ones because they really get a great cast and great actors in this one. But this is one though about this girl who gets transported to this weird land, and it's a real visual movie. There's all these kind of characters with these weird masks and all kinds of weird things. She has to try and figure out how to get back there, and all the humans are like kind of big and have weird bodies, but it's a real kind of visual movie. It's all kind of imagery, and it's the most, in my opinion, real super visual of all their movies, and the most kind of different kind of vibe of all their other movies. Some of the movies that they do are more like straightforward kind of movies, just sort of animated. Other ones are more like this, which are all to a land and things like that. But it has the original features though from the old DVD release as well. But looks great on Blu-ray. And this one I had never seen from them. And this is The Cat Returns. This is the creator of Spirited Away as well. And I watched the dubbed one of this as well. And I thought it had a great cast. Tim Curry though did one of the voices of the villains in this. And Anne Hathaway is the main girl in this. But this is about this girl in the beginning of the movie who ends up saving this cat that almost gets hit by a car. And for doing that, the kingdom of the cats comes to her and is like, we're inviting you to the kingdom, and they want her to go and marry the prince of this cat kingdom. And she doesn't want to go there, and she's all worried about this, and she meets this one guy, and they kind of talk about it and how they're going to get out of this situation. Of course, she gets abducted and taken to the Cat Kingdom, and what happens when she gets there and trying to get out. I like this movie. I mean, it's a real short movie. It's only like 70 minutes. It's just a fun movie, and it's more of like a silly kind of movie compared to their other movies. And I think they were making this for like a company like in Japan. I think it was going to be like a ride or something originally, or a show, and then they ended up liking the animation so much they expanded it into a full movie. The next one from Warner Brothers. And this is, I just started watching this, and I think there's a new season that's starting up soon. It's the complete first season of The Last Ship. And when it comes to new shows, sometimes I like them, other times I don't. This one I was liking. It's kind of like the ship going out, this Navy ship going out to, on a mission to just kind of like do stuff out there, and these scientists are on there kind of collecting samples. But when they have to break radio silence for a number of months. They're getting ready to come back, and then they having a hard time getting in touch with people, and they're going, stay where you are. They basically come to realize that there was an outbreak on the whole world, and basically pretty much everybody has been turned into like kind of zombies and died off. Well, no, not zombies. They pretty much died off. They're all just sort of dying off of this ship. I was kind of wishing it was zombies, but they died off. But then the ship is kind of like, what are we going to do? And they only have so much food left because they're only supposed to be out there so long. It's kind of about what they do, and then kind of going and trying to find more food. And like I said, I only just started watching this, but really got into this. This is one of those ones where I like really want to get through this, and I don't want to see any of the new season though, because it may like ruin like what happens in it. The next one, and this is one that I was so excited about. I'm just going to cover it because so no one says anything about the gore on it. But it's from Grindhouse Releasings, and I'll have the link underneath so you can see the actual uncut cover. But this is Grindhouse Releasings' Cannibal Ferox, which is one of my top favorite of the cannibal films. I actually kind of like this one more than Cannibal Holocaust, just a little bit, because I like the vibe of this movie. It's just a really weird movie, and this is basically though about a group of these kind of this one student that wants to go out and kind of prove about cannibals that there really aren't any cannibals out there, and it's about these two guys who went to kind of hide out in the jungle, and then they discover about these crystals and these jewel things they want to steal, and what ends up happening. But of course they did something bad to those cannibals, and then the cannibals don't like any people that are outsiders and want to come after these tourists there, and the tourists are trapped there getting attacked by these cannibals, and there's crazy sequences in this movie. Really, really, really great new transfer in this movie. It also comes with the soundtrack to the movie, but one feature in this that I absolutely love, which is worth it for, the whole thing just for it, was seeing footage from the original screening they had, the first U.S. screening that Grindhouse put together. I think it was like 97 or 98. But it was really cool. I just love those old screenings, because this is like back before people were really filming that kind of stuff, because it was before YouTube and all that. But really, really great cannibal movie. A whole bunch of new interviews with the cast and crew, and some archival interviews as well. Like I said, I wish I could show the cover, but people might say it's gross or something, and I don't need that. And the next one from Criterion is Five Easy Pieces, which I had never seen this movie before. My dad was saying, "Oh, this is really good," and I actually really like this one. It's a Jack Nicholson movie with Karen Black, which is it's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of Jack Nicholson is kind of coasting through life and kind of working on this out in his yard, like doing work and things like that, and he's not really that happy with his life, and he's getting in fights with the boss and all kinds of stuff. And Karen Black's his girlfriend, and he's kind of cheating around on her and seeing all these other kinds of women, and doesn't really seem very happy about his life or anything like that. And it's the best stuff in the movie was when he goes on a road trip to see his father, who he hasn't seen, and his father's very sick, and he goes with Karen Black, his character, and they meet these hitchhikers along the way, and that sequence was great. I kind of wish the hitchhikers were in it more, because like that sequence was amazing, especially the one talking about how she hates everything, everything's terrible. I don't know, it was a great movie, just a kind of a road movie too, and just a sad movie too. Like to me, I thought the ending was really sad and like downbeat. And it's one of those movies too. You kind of wish they had more to it. Like you wish you could follow them around forever and to see what they do. But it has on here, a great new transfer on this movie, and then some archival interviews and things like that with Jack Nicholson talking about the movie and commentary with the directors. But this is a really cool one. And here's a little look inside the booklet and things like that. And to me, this is definitely, I would say, one of my favorite Karen Black movies that I've seen, next to some of the more horror stuff she did. Now, the next one from Lionsgate is Beyond the Reach, which I had never heard of this one, and I think it was a remake of a TV movie with Andy Griffith. And this is with Michael Douglas, and this is, like I said, Beyond the Reach. And Michael Douglas is basically this guy who has all this money, works for a corporation, hires this kid to take him out into like the desert to go hunting. He has all this crazy, like really advanced guns and things like that. It just seems kind of off the guy. And he accidentally ends up shooting this guy with his gun when he's out there, who's like kind of like a homeless guy who lives out in the mountains in this weird kind of place. And he basically doesn't want this to get out because he has this big deal and he wants to do, doesn't want anything to compromise and ruin his deal. So then he goes and says to the kid, "Let's make a deal, I'll give you all this money." The kid, knew the guy that got shot, has a history with him, pretended like he was going to do it, and double-crossed him and said, "No, I can't do this." Then Michael Douglas is going after him with the gun, and basically he's making the kid run off and saying, "You're going to die out here." And he doesn't want to shoot him because then he can't cover it up. So he kind of wants him to just die from exhaustion from the heat and everything. And that's what it is the kid kind of going and hiding off and trying to survive out there. Really like this, and there was some great stuff too, and he goes in this weird kind of tunnel place and hides out like this mine. I like this movie. It was one of those movies I didn't get bored with it and really was interested in too, seeing if he was going to survive in this. And kind of a little bit of a different Michael Douglas movie. What has on here though, a featurette and then some making-ofs as well. The next one, this one was okay. I didn't love this movie. This is from Lionsgate as well, and this is The Forager with John Travolta. I mean, it was okay. I've seen other movies kind of like this that I liked a little bit more, but John Travolta ends up getting out of jail, and he ends up, and if you're wondering, Lulu, my dog's back there, that's what that snoring is, but makes this deal with the attorneys to kind of get out of jail early, and because of something that he did, and he doesn't know how to pay it back, and he kind of hears about this Monet piece, this art piece, and because he's always good at forging artwork and things like that, and he kind of comes up with the idea that he wants to steal this artwork and sell the original to get money and also help pay for his son because his son has cancer, and that's why he wanted to get out of jail early as well. But it's kind of like him and his son and his father, John Travolta's father, and we're kind of working together to try and steal this piece. It was okay. Not my favorite John Travolta movie in a while, but it was interesting though. It kind of had like an Ocean's 11 kind of vibe to it, like trying to crawl through the vents and get in and all that kind of stuff. The next one from Olive Films is one I never heard of with Kurt Russell called Mean Season, The Mean Season in Mariel Hemingway. And Kurt Russell is this newspaper reporter, and he's kind of getting tired of doing the same stuff and never really having any different kind of cases. And one day there's a murder that happens around him. Then he gets a call from this guy going, "I'm the person that killed them, and I like the way you write, and I'm going to start talking to you." And then he starts to kind of call Kurt Russell's character and giving him the inside scoops, and Kurt Russell starts getting kind of famous on the news all over the place because he's the only person that this guy is talking to, the only person that has the way that they might solve this case is from him. But then it gets kind of like Kurt Russell is almost like, is he an accessory to this because he's kind of allowing this to happen, wants to talk to him. It's kind of like a sick thing going on between them. I like this movie, and then there's one great scene too in this I don't want to spoil too much about it, like what he does, but I like this movie. It's a little bit dated, but it was. I think if you guys like Kurt Russell, this is a different one that I feel like not a lot of people have probably seen. This one I just finished watching, and I think I saw this one years ago. It's a Lawrence Fishburne, Stephen Baldwin movie, Fled. I think it's one I remember seeing like on HBO years ago. But it's about these two guys who end up, escaping, from jail because this one guy ends up going and breaking out, and then they end up basically almost shot and killed, so they have to run off as well, but they're chained together because they were in a fight earlier. But it's kind of them running out, trying to get away and figure out what they're going to do. And Stephen Baldwin's character says he has all this money, and that's pretty much what it is them trying to hide out. But there's also something going on with like the police and this group of these guys saying like they kind of want them dead, and they want Stephen Baldwin because he has this thing that has access to this money that he stole because he's a hacker. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on. I thought this is okay. Wasn't like super into this movie, but it's okay, kind of like escape movie. And I always like Lawrence Fishburne. Stephen Baldwin these days, I don't know. I don't see his views on things. The next one is a Tom Arnold, and this is like the first Kevin Hart movie, like one of his first movies, like right after Scary Movie 3. And this is, Soul Plane. This has the unrated and theatrical one. This is about basically this plane, which is like kind of like a rapper kind of plane, mainly for African Americans, run plane. And it's kind of like them just kind of having this adventure on the plane and all these weird things that happened. I've never seen this in theaters. It's just a silly, really fun movie. And like I said, if you're a fan of Kevin Hart too, this is like one of his earliest movies. Snoop Dogg is in this movie as the captain of the plane. I mean, it's one of those movies that everyone says is so bad when they talk about like bad movies, but it's a really fun, bad, silly movie, which I would definitely recommend. But it has on here all the features, which is cool. They brought them over from the old DVD release, of the film as well. And this is a great movie. The Thing with Two Heads. This is a great cult film. This is from Olive Films as well, which I'm glad they put this out because this kind of title I think of like Code Red or something like that releasing. But this is the main guy from Frogs in this, the real crudgy mean guy from Frogs, and he's this kind of real bigoty racist guy that's dying and has this kind of operation that puts his head onto a body of an African American guy who's a prisoner, in jail, and makes this deal to basically because he says that he's innocent and. But it's kind of like them together, and the guy's so racist and him on his body, and it's just such an ultimate bad thing to happen to the guy because he's all like mad about it and everything. It's a real product of its time kind of movie, though. It's real politically incorrect and everything, and really, really silly and ridiculous, and really bad effects. You can just see that they're like wearing a giant coat because they're trying to put their both together in the thing, and when they're running, it's like a really bad dummy head on it. But I don't know. I've always liked this movie. I saw this one years ago. The next one is like one of the early skateboarding movies, starring Josh Brolin thrashing. And this has a whole bunch of people in this. Brooks McArthur from Lost Boys is in this movie. Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks. But this is basically though about this guy who comes to L.A. and it's like a skateboarding competition, and he ends up falling and liking the one sister of the other guy on the other team, and it's kind of like a rivalry between them. And I don't know, it's a really cool early skateboarding movie, like one of the earliest ones that I can think of. Always liked this one a lot. Just a cool skateboarding movie. The next one from Dark Sky Films, and all the transfers and all those were all great. The Olive Films ones. They do a really good job cleaning the movies up, and really good. They never have any bad picture or anything, at least none that I've ever seen. The next one is Let Us Pray from Dark Sky Films, and this is starring Paulina McIntosh, who's really cool. I worked with her on a movie called I think The Obsession. I can't remember; it had so many different names, but she was really cool. She's also in the movie The Woman and Offspring, so always loved her stuff. But this movie stars her, and she goes to a new jail. Basically, goes to transfer to a new jail to work there. But the night she gets there, they end up bringing in this guy who's like gets arrested and things like that. But he's in the jail, and he's basically kind of like you're wondering what's with this guy because he can kind of see all the bad things that people have done. Like one guy there ended up hitting someone with his car. The other guy there was this terrible murderer guy and killed all these people. And it's really weird. He like can see all their things, and it's all them kind of in the jail, in the prison, and that night the people going crazy and getting killed. And I actually like this. I saw some kind of mixed reviews on this, but I thought this was actually a pretty cool movie. One of those kind of real ultra-violent movies. Really good performances in this movie. Just a cool kind of one. You're kind of wondering what is going on with this. this is one that I've been really looking forward to seeing. Pretty much have watched every Kristen Stewart movie. This is Camp X-Ray, and I like this a lot. And this is one of those ones I thought was pretty sad. Like I cried at the end pretty bad, just because I just really liked this movie. And it was, Kristen Stewart, and she's going to work at Guantanamo Bay, and it's like her first kind of time getting away from where she lives in Florida in this small town, and she goes there in Guantanamo Bay. And she's one of the guards for the prisoners that they believe are suspected terrorists. Well, they think that, but they kind of like the way it is there, you don't really even know. A lot of people were just arrested that didn't do anything that they just thought were, and she becomes kind of friends with the one guy there. And I think he didn't do anything wrong at all. It's kind of, you're wondering the whole movie if he did or he didn't. But she becomes friends with him in the beginning of the movie. She doesn't really want to talk to him because she's told not to. And it's just a great movie about like a friendship with her. And you start feeling really bad for the guy. And he really wants this Harry Potter book, and they don't have it. And it's I don't know. I just really like this movie. So I thought, and people give her sometimes crap for performances, and I always like Kristen Stewart's performances. I thought she was really, really good in this, and I really like this a lot. I would definitely recommend checking this one out, guys. This is one of my favorite ones in this update. The next ones from Blue Underground are three kind of, I guess you would say kind of like when they were doing sort of knockoffs of like the, Mad Max and the Warriors and those kind of movies, Clockwork Orange. And, the one is called 1990, The Bronx Warriors. And this is about a girl who ends up going into this kind of area of the Bronx. It's all shut down. It's kind of like, Escape from New York, where it's all kind of like they put all the criminals there and the bad people and things like that. And this girl ends up escaping there, who's like one of the richest women in the world, and they want to get her back, and she ends up kind of hiding out with this guy, and it's kind of like gang wars and all kinds of stuff. Really cheesy, fun effects. Has brand new interviews on here. And the other one is Escape from the Bronx, which is the follow-up to it, and that's basically this corporation wants to turn the Bronx into a kind of new condominium area, and they want to level the whole place, so they got to get everybody out, and they're going in there to basically exterminate everybody, and it's them trying to, the main guy from the first movie trying to go and stop all of them and keep it from happening. Has new interviews on this as well, but my favorite one of these was The New Barbarians. This one is like more of like a knockoff of The Road Warrior, and of course too, the transfers and all these are great. This one stars Fred Williamson, the Hammer, and the music in this is amazing. It's Claudio Clemente did the music in this, who was from Goblin, like crazy, like this insane music in this movie. It has a cool, weird loop to it, but it's basically though like the Warriors in like a Mad Max Road Warrior knockoff. Like this one group going after the other ones, them kind of trying to hide out, but they have they're driving around these sort of cheesy kind of golf course kind of thing, golf cart kind of things. And Fred Williamson shoots like these arrows with like flames on them, and they blow up, and the effects in these were really bad. Some of them they didn't work, and they kind of left them in there. These are so really, really fun. This has always been one of my favorite ones. I saw this one years ago when it first came out, but it has a new interview with the Hammer on this. But definitely check these out. These are just really fun movies. The next one from Magnolia is The Wrecking Crew. This was pretty interesting. The son of one of the guys on The Wrecking Crew directed this movie, and it was a lot of older interviews kind of cut to some newer things. But this is about the group that kind of played on all the albums for like the Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra, and kind of they never really got the credit they deserved because they were kind of like the studio band that was on all the recordings, doing guitars and the instruments and things like that. And that's pretty much what it is them all getting back together, kind of talking about it, recording the music, and kind of finally giving them, the credit they deserve for all the stuff they did, and how a lot of the stuff they came up with, some of the riffs and things like that. But it has on here, some deleted scenes and some songs, but it has 6 hours of bonus content, so a whole bunch of different stuff on this. But it was actually a pretty well-made documentary, especially if you're interested in, the Carpenters and a whole bunch of, the music of, the 50s and 60s. It's a pretty cool one. And the next one is season 5. It's from Comedy Central of Workaholics. This is I've always liked this show, and this is about, guys that are working in an office and kind of what they go through and kind of the weird adventures. My favorite episode on this, though, was the ones, I think it was their grandfather or something dies, and they go to his funeral, and you meet the one guy's father, and he's played by Jack Black. A really funny one because they want to give him a proper burial, and they kind of try and incinerate his body at the pizza place that they own. And Amy Yasovek, who was from Problem Child and Problem Child 2, John Ritter's wife, I always miss John Ritter so much, but his wife, and I haven't seen her in anything in a long time, but she's in this. But I like this show. It's just a really fun show, and them kind of going on weird adventures. And this has on here bloopers, deleted scenes, and this is also uncensored as well. The next one from Lionsgate is If There Be Thorns, and this is the follow-up. This is the third part of the Flowers in the Attic trilogy. I don't even think I think I saw the last one or not, but this is the same characters, the brother and sisters from the first movie years later. Now they're kind of married and together, hiding out, and their mother ends up moving in next door to their house, and it's kind of about she's trying to like ruin things for them and kind of wants to get it. It's all kinds of stuff going on, and it's a little hard for me to follow it because, like, to me, I always loved the first story the best, especially the original movie. But they're actually pretty well acted. Heather Graham is actually back in this one as well. I know I remember reading that they thought she might not come back in this, but this is kind of about the family, and they don't want their kids to find out about their their relationship, that they're actually brother and sister. So it kind of starts all over where the first one started, and the whole family's got some real problems though. All the incest and all that kind of stuff. But it's actually a pretty good movie. It was made for Lifetime. This one I had never heard of. I actually heard of it though because the one actress that I know who was in Haunted High with Me was in this movie. But it's a Britt Robinson movie, and this was a downer to me. This was a great movie, but it was one of those movies I don't think about a lot. Because especially the end, and I thought it was like a sad movie though. But it's White Rabbit, about this kid who's kind of got bullied at school and not really that happy, and he in the beginning of the movie he kills this rabbit, and it kind of haunts him his whole life, and he ends up having issues in school, and he meets Britt Robinson's character, and she's kind of doing drugs and kind of messing around, but they have like a great relationship. They kind of slightly starting to date, but then she ends up getting drunk one night and overdosing on these drugs, and he drops her off at the house, and she ends up disappearing, and it turns out she was taken away to like rehab, and she's become like a born-again Christian. It's got a whole lot of vibes of that kind of stuff, like born-again stuff in this movie. And then she comes back and has changed, and she doesn't want to be the same, and I kind of felt bad, like besides the drugs and stuff, like I felt like she was like the one thing that might have saved this guy. But it's about when that happens, and I don't know, I really love this movie. It's like I said, it's kind of a real big downer, but really well acted. I really like Britt Robertson, so I really wanted to see this as well. And I know some people were saying they're trying to like bury this one a little bit because it's a little bit more out there, because of like Tomorrowland, and she's done more like kind of kid movies lately. But I've always liked all of her stuff, even that one she did like. I can't remember when the Sony put it out though. It was like a relationship movie she did years back, which was good. The next one from Uncorked is Disciples. This has Tony Todd, Bill Moseley, Angus Scrimm, Linnea Quigley in this. This is Joe Hollow directed this. My friend Kelly Williams is in this movie, and this is basically, it's kind of about like a group of these people that are all about like the demons, and for some reason I have a really hard time explaining the plots to Joe Hollow's movies. They're because it's all like a lot of weird like sort of dark arts kind of stuff, and I don't feel like I know could explain it that much. But they kind of want to bring back Lucifer and all this kind of stuff, and but it's kind of about basically Kelly Williams' character ends up finding this amulet, and then the amulet is like the key to a young youth and things like that, and the characters are kind of wanting to take her in and possess her, and Tony Todd is like the head guy of it all. You're kind of waiting to see him. Bill Moseley he didn't have a great part in this. I mean, I like what he said in this, but he was kind of gone too soon in this movie. I said it's really hard to explain, but The Avenged, though, from Uncorked as well, and this was pretty cool. This is about a girl who's deaf and, can't hear and things like that, and goes out on this trip and ends up basically running into these characters that are on the side of the road. She sees them attacking these people, and they're these bad guys, and they end up basically going after her and attacking her, and she ends up getting killed. And this Indian curse brings her, this guy sees what happened and brings her back from the dead, and it's pretty cool. She goes around and like getting revenge on him. The one guy in this is the guy who's the villain, the bad guy in the movie, Joe, and it's cool stuff about her playing like stuffing her body with like weird stuff and trying to stay alive, and just a cool kind of revenge movie, kind of spit on your grave kind of vibe to it. The next one from E1 is Infernal, and this is basically about a couple that has just gotten married, and it's all done found footage style. Because at the beginning of the movie, I'm like, wait a minute, why is it filmed like kind of like these weird corners? I'm like, oh, it's the footage of him proposing to his girlfriend and trying to catch it because he would like want to put it up online or something. But you know, and then it's like footage of them at the wedding, people saying like, oh, well, do this and hopefully, you know, you guys have a great relationship and everything's happy and everything like that. But it's pretty much them getting married and they have their kid, and there's something very strange about the daughter. It kind of has like a vibe of like The Omen and kind of thing, but it's like I said, it's all done found footage, and the girl's always like brushing her hair, and it was okay. It was kind of, you know, like sort of typical to other ones. Didn't love it though. The next one I actually thought was pretty cool, mainly for the beginning of the movie because it was kind of creepy. But it's about these people going to, I believe it was in the Ukraine, and it's another found footage one, and it's about them doing this documentary on these cannibals in Russia when they had this huge famine, which I believe is true, and all these people had to eat each other and go to cannibalistic ways because they had no food, and pretty creepy, and it's like them talking to real people in the Ukraine about it, but then it goes into the real movie part, and they go out there and they want to meet this guy who was one of the cannibals back then. I believe that's what he was supposed to be. But when they get out to this cabin, things start to happen in the house, and bad things are happening. And the people that take him out there, like the guides, don't want to be there, and they're like, "This is dangerous, and we shouldn't be out here, and we're messing around with things." And it's kind of about what happens to them. And like I said, it's all done found footage, and some pretty creepy, different stuff. And it uses real stuff that's the truth and like real people, I believe, and then mixed with the actors. The next one. And this is a Richard Dreyfuss movie, and it's a pretty cool movie, and it's Cash and Dylan, and it's basically Richard Dreyfuss has basically found out that he's a doctor and finds out that he has this cancer, and he doesn't have a long time to live, and he doesn't want to go through treatment because his wife died from cancer as well, and he knows how difficult it is, and doesn't want to go through it, and he basically is planning to just off himself, but he ends up meeting this girl, and she asks him for a ride, and they end up going together and on the ride. And it's kind of about them having this friendship, and it's the whole time it's him, Richard Dreyfuss, trying to write his suicide note, and she says, "You got to have one, you got to say it." And I like this. It was a pretty good piece between both of them, and I really love Richard Dreyfuss. Always been a big fan of him. It was really cool. I got to meet him once, too, when I was at a CVS, because he lives out near where I am. I don't know. It's just a really, really cool movie, and really sad, too, but, kind of has, those kind of classic road movie kind of vibes to it. The next one from Anchor Bay is The Underdog Kids, and this is basically, though, a classic kind of kung fu kind of movie about these kids that end up having this guy who comes and trains them, and it's kind of got a vibe of, Sidekicks, mixed with the Karate Kids and that kind of real 80s kind of kung fu movies, and about kind of the bad kids trying to train them for this this kung fu and stuff like that. I like this. It's just a really fun movie. Tom Arnold is in this movie. It was Tom. Yeah, it was Tom. Yeah, Tom Arnold was in this. I don't know. I like this movie. With me, it was a real throwback to Three Ninjas and things like that. But he doesn't want to. I don't know. I like this one though. The next one from Alchemy Entertainment is the Amityville Theater, and I wasn't sure where this was shot or anything because people had British accents and then they had Canadian accents. I think it was shot in Canada, and it's the Amityville Theater, and this is about this girl who ends up finding out that she inherits, parents, one of her fathers died, I believe, or someone in her family dies, and she ends up inheriting this theater building, and she's wants to see it, and the woman's like, "Oh, why do you want to see that? You don't need to look at that place." And she really wants to see it, but she goes there to see the place, and then her professor is also investigating it, kind of trying to figure out the history of this place, but when they get there, weird things start to happen to them at the theater. It kind of reminded me of those 80s movies, when they go to clean up the theaters and things like that. They don't do a whole ton of stuff in it, and some of the acting in this was kind of questionable and kind of odd. But the one guy in this who's the British guy, though, was in a whole bunch of different movies. I can recognize him from some other stuff. I like the cover to it, but not an outstanding movie. The next one from Alchemy as well is a Mila Jovovich, Pierce Brosnan movie, Survivor. And this is about Mila Jovovich's character who works at the immigration, the office, and she's kind of investigating people coming over to the country and things like that. And this one guy, he wants to come in. She starts asking all kinds of questions, and it wasn't smart that she did this, you know, asking all these questions and trying to dig deep on the thing, because then she ends up involved in a whole big problem, and people are after her for this. And she basically discovers that there's like this planned terrorist attack on Times Square, and people don't want to listen to her, and they think she could be bad herself. And you know, Pierce Brosnan is in this movie. I thought it was okay. You know, I like Mila Jovovich, but it was kind of like those movies, like trying to figure out, is she going to be able to stop this, or is she going to get arrested herself, and what's going to end up happening to her. But I thought it was okay. It has on here a making of and deleted scenes. And the last one from Lionsgate is The Country Bucks Season 1. This was not my kind of show. Like, I didn't know what this was going into it. It wasn't necessarily bad, but I'm like not a hunter. I don't really believe in that, to be honest with you guys, at all. Not at all. Like, I could never do that. So I kind of was turned off by it a little bit. But, you know, I also had the guy from Duck Dynasty, and I don't like him much either, because of his opinions of things. But it's, you know, but I believe, you know, people can hunt if they want or whatever. But the company, though, is a company that kind of makes like hunting and outdoor stuff. Like, the outdoor stuff's fine, just the hunting stuff I just don't like. It's not a bad show or anything, it's just not my kind of show. But he kind of goes and they kind of test out new products and things like that, and it's kind of them kind of doing that. But anyway, though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray update. Like I always say, if you guys enjoy these updates, don't forget to give this one a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys later.